Hey buddy, it's Peter, and today we're going to take a look at two Pedego bikes that are both designed for off-road use, but I'm going to help you decide which one's best for you. And to do that, we're going to go over some of the specs and features of each, but I'm also going to share some of my opinion with a little bit of e-bike experience to maybe help guide you to what's best for you. So first of all, there's no possible way I can answer every possible question that you would have. So I'm hoping that you'll help me build a community here on this YouTube channel of just questions and answers. So when I go through this video, if I didn't answer your question, feel free to ask it in the comments below. And the best part is Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports here in Fredericton, New Brunswick allows me full access to their entire vehicle line, including everything Pedego sells. So we can come back to these bicycles, back to these features, and then address them both in the comment section and in other videos. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment if you have a question when the video is done, and let's go over what we've got in front of us. So first of all, this is the Rider Ridge. The big thing you're going to notice, very traditional bicycle look. Pedego doesn't do a lot of traditional bicycle looks, and that's because they're e-bikes, and there's some benefits to having a variety of styles. This is the Pedego Trail Tracker. They share a battery, they share a similar look, but there are some differences here. You can see the top tube and other things, and the biggest thing is the fat tires here. So we're going to talk about fat tires versus regular mountain bike tires. We're going to talk about the suspension fork here versus on this one, no suspension fork, and all those benefits and pros and cons that are going to make one bike better for you than the other. Let's dig in. So let's start with the Pedego Trail Tracker. This is really what I think of when I think of Pedego, because Pedego understands e-bikes and they understand that there are differences in e-bikes that make them practical. And one of the things you're going to find is when you get, for instance, a fat tire e-bike, you're going to look at it differently than a fat tire mountain bike. And that's a real key difference. Fat tires, they're just not super efficient. And if you were pedaling with no electric assistance, you're going to find that this can be a little harder to pedal than a regular mountain bike with thinner tires. Now that doesn't always mean that it's harder to pedal, because these fat tires are also good on certain terrains. We're going to talk about that in a second. But when you deal with an e-bike, that efficiency thing kind of doesn't matter, especially with an off-road bike. You're not going on, a 1,000-kilometer ride. You're usually going on an afternoon out where you're not going to cover as many kilometers of hard work, but you're going to tackle some hills and some other things. This bike to me really sort of sits in that area where if you're doing your off-road riding on trails, on rail trails into regular trails where you're facing some smaller bumps and some smaller obstacles, these tires are great because they can go from that pavement to grass to dirt trails to rocks and roots and other types of things, and they really kind of feel the same, especially that pavement to grass transition, that pavement to maybe rail trail, light gravel transition. You really feel like you have a lot of traction and also have a sort of a smooth ride. Now you'll notice this one doesn't have suspension up front, but you can air down these tires a little bit, and that'll allow you to have that smoother type ride. This mountain bike is a mountain bike that is designed to essentially stay on the ground. This is not something you're going to do major jumps with, although you can take, come off a curb, those kinds of things, no problem. But that's really what this is designed for, a sort of all-terrain type vehicle. Think of the modern day SUV. Sometimes they look a little more, tough or a little more off-roady than others, and that's sort of what this one is. It is an all-terrain bike, and it is very, very good at that. And you've got some nice features here. You've got proper hydraulic disc brakes, so that's a nice step up, front and rear hydraulic disc brakes. And let's show you a little bit about the drivetrain on this side as well. Taking a look at the gear set here, this is where you start to see Pedego vary from some of the things that they do. You've got this 10-speed mountain bike gear set back here. 10 speeds are what a lot of mountain bikes are doing now. They have a single sprocket out front and 10 gears here. And where things differ from some of the other Pedego bikes is it's a pretty even spread. Very, very small chainring here for higher speed riding, but even sort of spread up to the larger gears here for that hill riding, that really good ability to go up hills. And what you find is that even spread really just gives you the ability to get the exact gear you need to go up a hill. So this, again, is sort of mirrored on both bikes that we're looking at today. But one of the differences you're going to find is out front here, you have a dual chainring. So you have a chainring protection on this side, chainring protection on this side. That's good for protecting your chain from curbs, logs, all kinds of other things. But what it also does is keeps your pants out of the pant leg. And that's why this is, again, if you're wearing jeans like I am today, this is gonna keep those pants out of that gear ring there. And this is, again, more of that all-terrain. And I mean that truly, all types of terrain this can ride on, from soft sand to all kinds of trails. So again, typical stuff out here, typical Pedego stuff out here, a little bit more mountain bikey type stuff back here. Now let's take a look at the rider ridge. All right, this is where you get true authenticity, where I don't try to hide anything from you. I just said rider ridge instead of ridge rider. I don't know why I did that. But now you can see a few more mountain bike things on this rider ridge. You still have the same gear set here, same type of motor type in here. Now, of course, it's a narrower motor in here. It's wider in the fat tire bike because you have the narrower tires here, the traditional mountain bike tires, which we're going to talk about tires in a second here. But this all looks the same. Down here, there is no chain protector on the outside or inside, but there is a chain guide. Now, that chain guide both here and on the other side is important on an e-bike, because when you're on an e-bike, sometimes, especially if you're using the throttle, the motor is doing the work and this chain is a little bit more loose. When you're on a typical mountain bike and you're powering it all the time, this section of your chain stays very taut, very tight. But there is a possibility where you could be gaining speed or driving over a rough terrain, and this chain is going to bounce around more, and that's why you have this to keep it from hitting the, to keep the chain from sort of scratching up the paint. But you also have a guide to sort of keep it on your chain ring. That is one concern that can happen with e-bikes, like I said, when you're using the electric power versus the gearing, and that'll just keep everything in line. So they've really thought through, and you also have a little bit different design. I don't know if you can see it from that angle, but this kind of comes out here to give you all that space for gearing, but tucks in right tight to the wheel here. Let's talk about some of the tire differences now. All right, so we're not lined up nicely with the Ridge Rider right here, and we are over here on the trail tracker a little bit off center. So these are 4-inch wide tires. These are 2 1/4 inch. These are good sized mountain bike tires. They just look absolutely puny next to the oversized fat tire bike right here. But you can see good mountain bike tread. The benefit with these is you're going to get mountain bike tires. You can sort of swap them out. There's a lot of variety of off-road tires there, but these ones are just as aggressive, and that you don't always get that with the with certain types of off-road tires. The other thing is this one has a center ridge here. Fat bike tires are kind of notorious for having a real buzz on pavement. These aren't going to have that because the center ridge runs straight. These ones are traditional tires. You don't always want a center ridge when you're getting into certain types of traction. And you'll notice as well, like we mentioned earlier, this one you're going to sort of air down the suspension a little bit to get extra cushion, whereas on that one there you've got the Rock shocks there, brand name front fork that's been around for a long, long time. They also are lockout shocks, and that can matter if you're driving on smooth pavement. You can lock them out so you don't lose energy bouncing that shock up and down. You can get a little bit more efficient. Staying with the tires here, you can see they're very similar in diameter, and you can also see that there's a little bit of, jewelry on there. They've got the real decorative up sidewalls here, the Maxxis on there. And then of course on the more traditional Pedego with the fat tires, you've got the different rim color there, which again sort of stands out as a typical e-bike Pedego type thing. So, very similar type look, but of course a very different type function. This is quick release. This one needs an Allen key to do that. That's something to keep in mind as well if you're just gonna throw this in the back of your car or do something like that. All right, I've got a very busy shot here for you, but this will sort of help me just show a couple differences here. This, like we said, has a little different design here, which gives you sort of that step through kind of design. Now, both of these frames are available with a lower front step. You can get either one, same mechanical type bike, but with a lower front step. This one is both a traditional style, and in theory, it should be a hair lighter and a hair stronger, because it is a straight line, whereas this is probably a little bit longer tube. They share a battery both sides. They share the electronics both sides, so very, very similar right there. And they feel very similar seats as well. One thing you'll notice is both these bikes have abilities to add rear racks on here. You've got the frame built in to handle that right off the bat. They've both got the both got the quick release on the seat post, but this one has the suspension seat post on the fat tire bike. So again, a little more traditional. You're gonna be out of the saddle more in this one. You're going to be in the saddle more in this one, and that's why they give you suspension seat post. If you wanted to add that, you can absolutely do that on this bike as well. Now let's talk a little bit about the geometry of each bike. And geometry is basically the triangle that is formed between your feet, your butt, and your hands. Both of these have wide handlebars. To me, it looks like the exact same wide handlebar. And I will say that the sort of weight balance between both bikes is very good. It's sort of centered in the bike right here. And the same thing, centered in here. The Ridge Rider, or oh boy, the Ridge Rider, yes, it does feel a little lighter to me. But when you're on a mountain bike, compared to some Pedego e-bikes, some of them you sit a little bit more upright like this. You want to have that forward lean, and you have that forward lean on both of these bikes. And because the weight is balanced on either one of these, if you're going off-road and if you're sort of taking the bike somewhere, you can kind of feel like you have that good control and good balance. Just enough weight on your hands, not enough to make your hands sore, but enough to have the control. And again, now we're stepping into my opinion of which one of these is going to work for you. Like I said, this is not a bike that I would take off jumps, certainly coming over a curb or that kind of thing. This is a bike that I would use in a very traditional mountain bike sense. You could go to a mountain bike park. It looks very standard. It does have the bigger down tube there, so people will know it's an e-bike. But this is a bike that feels very much like riding a extra powerful mountain bike. It just gives you that power when you need it. The throttle, I think, makes a big difference in mountain bike riding. And this one, to me, is still that all-terrain. If you get into a situation where you need to be balanced because you are coming off something that, you know, like a larger curb or a larger, you know, a drop of some sort, no big deal, this will take it. Whereas this one kind of feels to me like you can really take it off like you would a regular mountain bike. So if you are a rider who is going to be riding on the roads, on the rail trails, and go off the rail trails onto other types of paths, this is the bike I would recommend. That doesn't mean that this bike can't do it. What it means is this is a little bit more focused as more of an off-road. So if you think about it like a Jeep Wrangler, this one's really going to be the Rubicon model. It's going to take you off-road, even though it hasn't got the fat tires, which of course in the Jeep world, that's what you would get. They're going to give you some efficiency, some sort of typical grip that you're going to have on that mountain bike type ride. Whereas this one's going to be a little bit more plush, a little bit more, you know, less feel for the trail, but more cushion from the trail, so you really don't notice a whole lot of difference between going from that paved section to that gravel section, where here you're going to feel everything. It's a little bit more precise and a little bit more ability to go probably further off-road, further more hooligan-like, and have a whole lot of fun. So that's a basic review of these two bikes. We could talk about the electronics. They're basically the same in both. In fact, you know what? Why don't we just dive into that really quickly and then wrap this one up. All right, I'm taking a look at the Ridge Rider here. This is basically the controls you're gonna have on both bikes. It's a very simple home screen, a set screen, a plus and a minus. The plus and the minus is where you want your hands to be. And I should point out that the grips here are very mountain bike-like. They are the same on both bikes. So again, mountain bike feel, the feel on your hands feels the exact same. PAS, right there on the bottom, that is your pedal assist setting. You can set it to 0, and that means you're riding this like a regular mountain bike. You are all of the power, and you can certainly do that in areas if they don't allow an e-bike in a certain area, especially with a mountain bike. Sometimes they allow, if it's a mountain bike course specifically, sometimes they don't want you using power. Well, you can set this and it's no power, just like a regular mountain bike. Then you get into level 1. To me, level 1 takes the weight out of both of these bikes, especially something on the fat tire bike, the Trail Tracker. You're going to notice that that level 1 really makes it, sort of lightens up those tires, eliminates that extra resistance of those tires. Then you get into level 2, level 3, level 4, and level 5. Each of those, as you pedal your pedals, you will feel it gives assistance, and level 5 is very strong. It'll be very difficult to drive slowly because you're just going to be spinning your pedals, and it'll give you a lot of power in level 5. Now, what's interesting about Pedego e-bikes is they also have a level 6. That level 6 allows you to use the throttle, which I'm going to show you right now. On that pedal level 6, you'll see the blue light here. Anytime it's blue, that means it's kind of ready to go. And if I give it the throttle, it'll go. But if I switch down to a lower setting, so level 5 right here, then it goes green. So green is kind of always active. It's in pedal assist setting, but it also has an active throttle. In the blue setting right here, that's level 6, there's no pedal assist. When you're pedaling, it's just you pedaling, but when you hit a little hill, you can spin this throttle and it'll start moving. I'm not gonna spin it right now because it is on. And that's kind of a nice setting to have, is you can kind of head down hills, head through, you know, make it feel exactly like a regular mountain bike, but when you need a little assistance, you spin that throttle. So I'm a big fan of that setting, especially in a mountain bike. You've also got your trigger and thumb shifter here for that 10-speed gears, and you can have your indicator right there. Again, this is identical on both bikes. Now, I'm gonna take it out of pedal 6, go to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're gonna see right here when I go to level 0, that means that is off. So that means that no matter what, if I spin this throttle here like that, it's not doing anything. If you pedal your pedals, it's also not doing anything. It's just you. So the blue light there in level 6 lets you know that, hey, I'm not gonna give you pedal assist, but I am gonna be alive and ready for you if you wanna use the throttle. So there's my brief overview of the Trail Tracker and the Ridge Rider here. Which one's best for you? Well, that's kind of up to you. Keep in mind, I normally do a torture test with bikes like these where I take them over to a hill. We haven't done that on this video, but that's because that saves us the ability to do a riding test in a future video. If you have questions about these bikes, let me know in the comments below, because there's no way that you're the only one with that question, and I'd love to answer it in the comment section, as well as make future videos on these bikes to help other people. We can create that community here. And if you want to check these bikes out for yourself, head on down to Fredericton, New Brunswick. Come to Jim Gilbert's Wheels and Deals, Jim Gilbert's Power Sports. It is a destination store. It's amazing. You'll see the full lineup of Pedego and a whole bunch of other things. It's a great place to be, and you can check them out. You can take them home. Thanks everybody for watching.